today's meeting?
Well, Deanna, we are hearing some comments coming from the Kremlin about today's meeting. A Kremlin aide says the talks were useful and constructive, that Russia received some signals from Trump, that it sent some signals in response, but there's really no detail on what those signals were. That Russian official also saying that Putin and Witkoff discussed the prospects for the development of a strategic partnership between the U.S. and Russia. Again, though, the question is, what does that actually mean? As you pointed out, this was Witkoff's 5th visit to Russia in recent months. We saw pictures of him today meeting with Vladimir Putin, but really we've seen pictures like that before, and what we have not seen is any sign that Russia is interested in ending its war in Ukraine. If anything, the war has lately become much more intense. Russia continued its attacks overnight, so at this point, no sign Russia is looking for peace, despite these repeated attempts by the U.S. to cajole, to convince them to back off. And Trump really has been sounding increasingly frustrated with Russia lately.
Now, Tom, we know that Trump has threatened harsh new sanctions on nations buying Russian oil, targeting countries like China and India. Of course, if enforced, that would be a very big blow to the Russian economy. How are Russian officials responding to this?
Well, I should say that Trump is actually appears to be making good on that threat of these secondary tariffs on countries that do business with Russia. Today, Trump announced an executive order imposing an additional 25% tariff on goods from India, saying that that country, India, directly or indirectly imported Russian oil. Now, Trump had given Russia until the end of this week to agree to a ceasefire or face these new sanctions. It looks like, with India at least, he's now moved early. Now, oil and gas are really the backbone of the Russian economy. So putting sanctions on countries that buy those goods could really hurt Russia. Now, we have heard from Russian officials that call these new sanctions illegal, but of course, Russia's war against Ukraine is widely seen as illegal.
Tom, thank you so much for that. That's CBC's Tom Perry in Washington.
Texas House Democrats fled the state just a few days ago to protest a Republican push to redraw congressional voting districts. Dozens of Democratic representatives are now in Illinois. CBC's Karen Pauls has been following this story for us and joins us once again from Washington. So, Karen, why are the Texas Democrats fleeing their own state?
You know, Natasha, this is a dramatic effort to stop Texas Republicans from holding a vote that could determine the balance of power in the U.S. Congress. The Texas Republicans want to reshape or relocate 5 districts that are now being held by the Democrats. And those 5 extra seats could help keep control in Republican hands for another 2 years, clearing the path for U.S. President Donald Trump's legislative and spending agenda. And really, this has become quite a heated standoff. Some of those Texas House Democrats had to evacuate their hotel in Illinois this morning because of a bomb threat. That prompted a tweet from Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, and I think we have a version of that. He said, "I'm aware of reports that threats were made against Texas elected officials in our state. Threats of violence will be investigated and those responsible will be held accountable. I've instructed Illinois State Police to ensure we maintain public safety." Now, the Democrats held another news conference in Illinois today to support their Texas colleagues. And you can really get a sense of the anger and the outrage they're experiencing in this clip by North Carolina Senator Sophia Chitlick. Take a listen.
This is not a North Carolina or a problem or a Texas problem. It is an American problem. And it is a true constitutional crisis and one that we can stop. In resisting partisan gerrymandering, Texas legislators are not just standing up for their constituents, but the future of our republic itself. North Carolina Democrats stand today in support of our very brave colleagues in Texas who are using every tool at their disposal to resist the dystopian future that we know all too well. You are not alone. Keep fighting.
Now, rewriting electoral maps isn't new. It has a long tradition in U.S. politics. And for years, Democrats have said politics have no place in map making, and they've backed independent, nonpartisan panels. But now some say they may retaliate in their own states and start redrawing the maps there. Apparently, there's a version of a map in California that could flip 5 Republican seats to the Democrats. And in response, Republican governors in places like Florida and Indiana are looking at doing this as well. It's all fair game. The U.S. Constitution allows states to control election boundaries, but Natasha, the courts are allowing them to do that in a blatantly political way.
The Republicans in Texas are not too impressed, Karen. How are they responding?
Well, Governor Greg Abbott has filed an emergency lawsuit against House Democratic Chair Jean Wu. Abbott wants permission to remove him from office, saying he violated the state constitution and that he abandoned his office. The Texas Supreme Court has ordered him to reply by 5 o'clock Friday. And here's some of what Abbott is saying in interviews today. Take a listen.
And Will, as we're talking right now, Texas Department of Public Safety officers are on the streets looking for those Democrat House members to arrest them and to take them to the Texas Capitol and hold them there until a quorum is reached.
Now, those civil arrest warrants can't be enforced outside of Texas, but Abbott says those law enforcement officers are looking for them and will bring them back to the House. The Democrats also face fines of $500 per day that they can't pay out of their campaign funds. And just to put that into perspective, Texas state representatives get paid $600 a month, plus a little per diem to cover expenses when the legislature is in session, which currently it is not. Natasha.
Okay, CBC's Karen Pauls in Washington. Thank you, Karen. Health officials in China are racing to contain a major outbreak of a mosquito-borne virus that can cause severe pain. 7,000 people have been infected so far, so a campaign is currently underway there to stop further spread of this virus. CBC's Angie Seth has more.
The chikungunya virus has infected approximately 240,000 people in about 16 countries, and there have been 90 deaths. However, no cases in Canada, and Canadian officials are monitoring things carefully. But there are outbreaks to note of. As you can see on the map there are areas of concern. So we're looking at regions around the Indian Ocean. So that includes, as you can see on the map there, Réunion, Mayotte, Mauritius, Madagascar, Kenya, and Somalia, as well as Bolivia, China, and Sri Lanka. We're going to shift our focus to China. That's the area of concern as well. Over 8,000 or so cases there centered around the Chinese province of Guangdong, as well as the southern city of Foshan. Those that have been infected in those areas have been quarantined in hospital until they have a negative test for the virus. And this virus, in terms of symptoms, can cause fever and joint pain. In some cases, that pain can be severe. It apparently does start in the hands and the feet, but it can spread to other parts of the body, and the pain can even last several months. Other symptoms include a rash, fatigue, headache, nausea, and vomiting, and those symptoms can take up to a week or so to appear after an individual has been infected. What is important to note is that this virus is spread by infected mosquitoes, not person to person, so that is an important distinction. Here's more on that.
And in many places, we don't control the mosquito population, so the likelihood is that once it gets from, say, someone who has traveled to China and then, say, back to Singapore or anywhere else, and if they do encounter mosquitoes, it would not be of any surprise that there will be outbreaks that spring up all over Asia, Southeast Asia, and many other parts of the world.
So again, no cases in Canada, but officials are monitoring things carefully. Now, people at higher risk include newborns or infants under the age of a year old, older adults, and those carrying underlying medical conditions. Pregnant women are also an area of concern, and those pregnant women can also pass the virus on to their babies inside the womb. Canada has issued a level 2 travel advisory to those places of concern. And what that means is that they're advising travelers to practice enhanced health precautions. Use, for example, approved bug spray or insect repellent on exposed skin, to also encouraging people to wear light-colored, loose clothing made of materials like nylon or polyester, to wear socks and closed-toe shoes, as well as to sleep under a mosquito netting if you're outdoors or you're staying in places that are not fully enclosed. There is also a vaccine vaccine for this virus for prevention, and it is approved in Canada. People are being advised to go to the Canada government website under travel for more information, as well as to get those latest updates. Angie Seth, CBC News, Toronto.
Premier John Hogan says it's a dangerous time for Newfoundland and Labrador as wildfires burn and people are evacuated from their homes. And despite a fire ban, people are still having bonfires on the beach for fun.
Minister Haggie said it is nuts. The province is on fire. And we only have so many assets to go around. To have a provincial fire ban in place, and the day the ban is in place to have bonfires here in the city, I'm so disappointed and frustrated and angry. I understand life in Newfoundland and Labrador, and part of summer life is having bonfires on the beach, and it is part of our life. It's enjoyable, it's fun. I mean, people come from all around the world to do these things here in Newfoundland and Labrador. But Minister Haggie also said the province is a tinderbox right now. The island is a tinderbox. Nobody wants to be responsible for burning down communities.
Nova Scotia has taken a hard line. That province has banned hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of ATVs because of the risk of wildfires.
I'm not sure what the rationale for banning people from being in the woods totally is. We're certainly going to look at everything, as Minister Dempster said, but I think the first step right now is to look at the increase in fines.
But then he said banning ATVs in the woods could be an option.
Yeah, again, we are looking at everything right now, all options to make sure that we do not have any increased fire, any unnecessary or human-created fire activity for the remainder of this summer and into the future. We're looking at everything.
So that is something
Yes.
you're considering?
Yes.
Banning ATVs?
We're looking at everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, the minimum fine for having a bonfire on the beach is $75, a number Hogan says is way too low. Violating the province-wide fire ban could result in a fine of $1,000. Hogan says the government is looking to increase fines within the next week, bringing them more in line with Nova Scotia. Right now, breaking their bans costs $25,000. Jessica Singer, CBC News, St. John's.
Wildland firefighters in Saskatchewan now have the same cancer coverage as firefighters who work in cities. It's welcome news for those battling forest fires across the province this summer. The province amended the Workers' Compensation Act to expand their coverage for cancer. The changes just came into effect August 1st. Wildland firefighters now have presumptive cancer coverage for 22 types of cancer, including 6 types that were just added to the list. That means when a firefighter is diagnosed with any of those cancers, it's presumed to be work-related, and they are eligible for coverage through the Workers' Compensation Board. The province says that's more comprehensive than anywhere else in Canada. Saskatchewan firefighters called to fight a fire in another province would also be covered. Firefighters constantly risk exposure to smoke and other toxins on the job, and cancer is the leading cause of death in that line of work. Even some of their protective equipment contains carcinogenic materials. Other than here, only British Columbia, Manitoba, and Ontario offer presumptive coverage for wildland firefighters. Saskatchewan just expanded coverage for urban firefighters last year. Now, wildland firefighters have some peace of mind while they're on the front line. Jeremy Warren, CBC News, Saskatoon.
I invited a fire expert to come and assess my home to find out what I can do to better protect it. Wildfires are getting way too close for comfort, even here in North Vancouver. Embers can fly as far as 2 kilometers from the edge of the wildfire, and experts say if one lands in your yard and there's fuel, that's how houses can catch on fire. But fireproofing your home can be really expensive. So I wanted to know, what can I do without actually going broke?
Invest time into the 0 and 1 to 1.5 zone and the roof. Those are kind of the big ones that Fire Smart preaches. Again, that's where the embers are gonna land. So now that we're about around the back of your home, I can actually see the roof. So what we want is, it's called the Class A roof. Pretty much means it's non-combustible. So we want asphalt shingles or composite material, rubber, anything that can't burn and can't melt.
But there's also stuff that's free, like clearing the roof of leaves and debris, moving the toys away from the home.
This right here is actually perfect.
It's like cement blocks.
Cement blocks. However, you do have combustibles in the zone. So your foundation is good, but we want to get rid of things like this fence, this flower pot, these chairs, this storage container over here, and the fire truck would unfortunately need to go.
Honestly, these little things I can do. And if everyone on the street does them too, it might actually help.
Fire Smart, if it's applied according to all the principles in it, it definitely can work. It has a lot of potential to save homes, minimize, damages down the road if it's applied in its entirety. Making the necessary changes to the home and landscaping it's very expensive, and it's not changing one little thing. Oftentimes it's a lot of things.
Fire season is only going to get more intense, so here are some places to start. Consider fire-resilient plants and gutter sprinklers. Metal cladding can be added to the base of your house, and have an emergency evacuation plan for your home.
After months of slow sales, the Toronto real estate market is seeing an uptick. New numbers indicate the best July in years. Clara Pasica joins us now with the details. Clara.
Well, it's been a summer of sold signs here in the GTA. Homes like this one behind me. Over 6,000 GTA properties changed hands in the month of July. Now, that is the best July that we've seen in 4 years' time, since July of 2021. Sales here in the GTA rose nearly 11% in July compared with a year earlier. But the average price of a home, now that is going down about 5.5% compared to last year. Now, the Toronto Regional Board of Real Estate Board says improved affordability driven by lower prices and borrowing costs looks like it's finally translating into sales. But they say to really kick things up a notch in the market, what needs to happen is an interest rate cut from the Bank of Canada. I did speak to an economist who specializes in the Canadian economy and the real estate market. His comments when looking at this data was a little bit more tempered than the real estate board. Have a listen.
The context matters here, right? So if we're seeing 2 or 3 months of sales increases off of extremely low levels, you know, multi-year, if not decade low levels, we're still talking about a market that's pretty sluggish. And it's still going to take quite a bit more time or quite a bit more interest rate stimulus to turn it around. On the interest rate front, we just don't see the scope of easing coming in the short term. That's going to be enough to really pop this market higher.
Of course, buying a home in the GTA will still cost you a pretty penny. The average home sale price still over $1 million in the GTA. The real estate board was hoping for an interest rate cut, so that is not something that happened in July. The next opportunity for the Bank of Canada could come in September. But housing advocates that I'm speaking to say that might not actually be the solution to increasing affordability, especially for first-time home buyers. They instead want to see the government do more to make construction a little bit cheaper. Now, if you are someone who is in the fortunate position to be able to buy now, there is lots of choice available right now. 30,000 listings last month. That's more than 26% compared to last year.
Wow. Thank you, Clara.
Hello. 2025 has already been a busy year at the Toronto Humane Society, with a much higher number of pet owners bringing their animals here because they are no longer able to care for them.
This year we have seen in the first 2 quarters an increase of about 28% from 2024.
The most common reason that owners give for surrendering their pets is that they can no longer afford the cost of caring for them.
Cost of living is obviously a big impact, financial resources, medical care or needs, and the cost that comes with that for the pet. Housing insecurity is on the rise for people as well.
It's not just the Humane Society that has had an increase in pet surrenders.
This year has been just unbelievable. My inbox is full daily with requests for owners that need to surrender their pet.
Denise Angus runs a rescue called Maddie's Place, which helps find homes for animals across the province. She's already had more than 700 requests from owners looking to give up their pets, and there are a variety of reasons.
A lot of times it's behavioral issues with a pet and they can't keep the pet. A lot of times it's people that have passed away and their family is now trying to find placement because they can't keep the pet.
Before accepting a surrendered pet, the Humane Society does offer services to help owners keep their animals, including an on-site pet food bank.
That's open 7 days a week, where people are able to come and access food.
Both the Humane Society and Maddie's Place also offer financial assistance for veterinary expenses.
As often as I financially can, I will cover the cost of the bill so that they can, keep their pet or not euthanize their pet.
We do offer an urgent care program, so people that are experiencing a temporary crisis, we can look to see if there's a way that we can support that, where they don't actually have to be relinquished to the shelter.
The Humane Society says in most cases, the owners would prefer to keep their pets, but are simply not able to. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
4 McGill University faculty associations have filed a court challenge against Bill 89.
They say it's unconstitutional, and a key part of their objection is that the bill uses vague language, which they say gives the government broad powers in determining which kinds of strikes will be harmful to the public. So, how does Bill 89 affect people's right to strike?
Well, everybody can strike until it's declared that some services, by a discretionary measure, some services are important for the public and have to be provided.
Bill 89 was adopted in May and will come into effect in November. It will allow the Quebec government more leeway in determining what an essential service is.
But it also imposes additional burdens on parties during collective bargaining to come to essential service agreements.
In turn, this will allow the Quebec government to decide which strikes can go ahead and which won't.
They basically want to leave a discretion in the hands of the government to get rid of strikes. If the strikes cause serious damage to the public, not damage to health, not absolutely crucial damage. They are not satisfied with leaving only the essential services as they are presently defined.
This lawyer says that essentially what Bill 89 is trying to do is undermine a 2015 Supreme Court decision that held that the right to strike is constitutionally protected.
So who it does cover is actually quite broad. It could be municipal services. There's some people that think it could cover certain parts of the private sector. So until the minister tests it, it's very risky, and hence why I think it's important that it's now being challenged legally.
The McGill University faculty associations that are challenging the law say that Bill 89 undermines the collective bargaining process and that it removes the only leverage that workers have, the ability to withhold their labor.
And we're seeking to have this overturned because we view it as a fundamental violation of Quebec workers' rights, not just professors, but all Quebec workers, because the law fundamentally undermines workers' ability to exercise their fundamental charter rights to freedom of association, which is the right to strike.
Other Quebec unions say they are considering their own challenges to Bill 89 so that it doesn't come into effect in November.
Want to get the most out of CBC News? Use the app or cbcnews.ca for live breaking news on the stories that matter to you. Whether it's local, national, or around the world, turn to CBC News.
Today marks 80 years since the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima in Japan. And memorial ceremonies are being held in countries around the world to mark this grim anniversary. Here's a look at the one in Hiroshima itself. Representatives from 120 countries attended the ceremony. A moment of silence was observed at 8:15 a.m. local time, the exact time of the bombing. Guests then paid their respects by laying wreaths and flowers and releasing doves as a call and a symbol for peace. And this is the moment the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. It was the first time nuclear weapons were used as a weapon of war. The city of Hiroshima was leveled with about 70% of the city's buildings destroyed. By the end of 1945, the number of deaths had risen to approximately 140,000 people due to injury and radiation. The bombing 3 days later in the city of Nagasaki marked the end of the Second World War, but the destructive legacy of nuclear weapons continues to this day. The CBC's Crystal Gomezing is following today's anniversary and joins us now from London. Crystal, walk us through how this anniversary is being remembered.